This is the border between North and South Korea, known as the DMZ, which stands for Demilitarized Zone. If we translate it, it means non-military zone. Neither of the two Koreas is allowed to enter this area with weapons. And if they have a problem, they must resolve it with physical confrontation, not gunfire. These confrontations have happened many times, but on August 19, 1976, a conflict occurred here that went down in history. A conflict that could have triggered World War III. Within the DMZ, there is a neutral area where the main border passes right through it. This means that this area belongs neither to North Korea nor to South Korea. That's why they themselves call it the Joint Security Area. You might remember, Donald Trump also entered North Korea from this very border. In this small neutral security zone, North Korean and South Korean guards usually see each other and even sometimes pass by each other closely, especially in the 1970 when tensions were running high here. So, what was this conflict we're about to talk about? It all started with a tree located in the Joint Security Area, meaning it didn't belong to North Korea or South Korea. The tree had grown and was blocking the view of the South Korean guards to the point that they couldn't see the border properly. So they decided to cut down the tree. To avoid any conflict, South Korea didn't send their own guards to cut it down. Instead, they contacted the United Nations, asking for personnel to come and cut the tree in the Joint Security Area. Personnel arrived, grabbed some axes, and headed towards the tree. You might wonder why they didn't use a chainsaw. We don't know, maybe because of the noise. They approached the tree and started chopping it with axes. Suddenly, North Korean guards surrounded the tree and asked, "Who gave you permission to do this?" The UN personnel responded, "We are with the UN." The North Koreans replied, "We don't care who you are. Get lost." The UN personnel quickly returned, realizing the situation was getting tense. The South Korean guards asked, "What happened?" They said, "Man, those North Koreans are angry. They might suddenly attack and kill us." The South Koreans said, "All right, you go now. Come back in 2 weeks, and we'll send 4 guards with you to cut the tree." Fast forward to August 19, exactly 2 weeks later. 4 South Korean guards arrived early and stood around the tree. Then the UN personnel came with axes and started chopping the tree. The North Korean guards were watching from a distance, wondering, what are they doing? Why don't they leave this tree alone? A few North Korean guards approached and started shouting, this time in Korean, "Don't touch it, step back." But the UN personnel and South Korean soldiers ignored them and continued their work. The North Korean guards returned to their post, and within minutes, a truck full of reinforcements arrived. All of them were armed with batons. Remember, in this neutral area, no one is allowed to carry firearms, but batons are permitted. The UN personnel and South Korean soldiers saw about 20 baton-wielding North Korean guards approaching. They were shocked. It looks like they're here to fight, but they continued chopping. The North Korean commander, seeing that they weren't stopping, ordered his men to attack. The South Koreans and UN personnel realized they were about to be beaten. They dropped their axes and ran towards South Korea. But the last 2 were caught and beaten with batons. Both of them were UN personnel. They were severely beaten. Then the North Koreans noticed 2 axes on the ground. They picked up the axes and attacked them with them, killing both. You might think this was just a fight between 2 Koreas. It's not a big deal. But you should know that this fight was between two superpowers. During the Cold War era, meaning this fight could have started World War III. When the North Korean guards returned and reported it to their superiors, their higher-ups were shocked and reported it to their own higher-ups. Orders came down from the top. Announce that this tree is sacred to us because it was planted by Kim Il-sung, the first leader of North Korea years ago. They made up this story to cover up their actions. The situation worsened when they realized that the two dead personnel were Americans. You should know that after the Korean War, the South Korean military operates under the supervision of the United States. The United States has more than 50 military bases there. For this reason, American forces came to the border. Their higher-ups instructed them not to escalate the tension, because they were not just facing North Korea, they were dealing with the Soviet Union. Military commanders decided the tree must be removed at all costs, but without starting a war. So they planned to return 2 days later at a set time to cut down the tree. This time, not with 4 personnel and 2 axes, but with a full military operation from land and air. This time, with chainsaws to quickly bring the tree down. The Americans stationed helicopters and military planes along the border and ordered them to fly at low altitude to create a lot of noise, so the North Korean guards would come out and see what was happening. Then 2 South Korean military trucks and 1 U.S. military truck arrived near the tree. 60 South Korean soldiers disembarked, this time not with batons. Each one carried an M16 rifle. The U.S. truck also had 16 armed soldiers. 3 of them took chainsaws and headed towards the tree, beginning to cut it down. Meanwhile, helicopters and planes flew overhead. The North Korean soldiers were watching, waiting for orders. The Americans instructed, don't cut the tree down entirely. Just remove the branches. Leave the trunk intact. What they were thinking, we don't know. North Korea didn't react at all. The Americans were on edge. They had already deployed the USS Midway aircraft carrier to the waters near South Korea. American bases in South Korea were all on alert and said that if they attack, we will also attack. Of course, neither the Soviet Union nor the United States should fight such a war. So they let the tree go and it was removed. But they kept the trunk, maybe for its historical significance or as a reminder, because they lost 2 lives over that tree. Interestingly, after this incident ended, Kim Il-sung, the leader of North Korea, apologized to the United States and South Korea, saying, "We're sorry for killing those 2 personnel." However, this apology and reconciliation were reported worldwide, except in North Korea. The North Korean people never knew he apologized, because their leader is considered a god who never makes mistakes. Years passed, and the remaining tree trunk dried up, started to rot, and had to be removed. So the South Koreans came and took it out, placing a memorial plaque in its place. The North Koreans just watched and said nothing. This incident is recorded in history as a very dangerous one, with a high potential for starting World War all over a tree.